I'm good, thank you. Very good, thanks. Now, where are you? Where in the world is Samia?
I have the very good fortune to be sitting in the garden of my mother-in-law's here in Santa Marinella, Italy. So we're not far from Rome, but on the west, on the coast, near a huge port called Civitavecchia. And it's about 32 degrees now. And I'm getting a little hot and sweaty here, even in the shade with the fan on.
Well, it is amazing because actually we were talking earlier today, and the weather here in London is fabulous as well. I know it's not the same for everyone around the world that's joined us. We do have some folk from India, but I know it's pretty warm there, and some from the southern hemisphere. I know in South Africa it's pretty chilly there at the moment. But welcome to everybody that's joined us today from wherever you are in the world. Samia, you are a creative soul, and if I think back to how we first met, and that was just perhaps the universe conspiring to bring us together, and that was through a project that I was helping a friend with her charity, which was Donate for Refugees, and you were doing work as well at the same time with the Refugee and Migrant Network in Sutton, the London Borough of Sutton, and just somehow we met at an arts networking event. And from that moment on, things just, we went from strength to strength in terms of collaborating and working together. But you're more than just a creative person. You're a dreamer. I mean, imagination plays a big part in your life, but dreams, you told me many times, dreams play such an important part in your life. So
they genuinely do, Andy. Yes.
So tell us more around that, dreams.
So I think I've always had dreams, and we're talking about when I'm actually sleeping, and I've always felt that I've received messages in dreams. And some years ago, at the sort of start of my creative journey as a playful creative and working as a community artist in Sutton, I'd been involved in a couple of years worth of really beautiful, wonderful projects, and things were sort of dwindling, and life was changing. I wasn't really sure what to do next. I thought, oh, perhaps that's it. I've come to the end of my playful creativeness. I couldn't see a way forward. I was kind of scrabbling around in the dark. And I remember over a couple of months being a bit worried about this, thinking maybe I should forget that idea. Maybe I should just stick to bookkeeping or business administration. I'm not cut out for this. And I had a dream one night. And in this dream, it was a dream of trust and going with the flow, even if you don't know where you're going, but trusting that life would actually take you there. And it showed me that actually what I was hoping to do and what I was desiring with my heart was actually the right thing for me to be doing, that I needed to carry on. And I found myself in this dream, funnily enough, in what was the Queen's Jubilee carriage. So I get in the carriage, and the shutters, it was like an airplane, those shutters on the windows. These shutters come down all of a sudden really quickly. It was pitch black in there, and I sat in the middle, and I knew instinctively that I just had to sit back. Even though I was completely in the dark, I had to just sit back, trust, and go wherever that carriage was taking me. And the carriage moved on, drawn by horses. It stopped at a point. The shutters came up, and I was outside the gates of Buckingham Palace. So this was the dream. And I thought, when I woke up in the morning, I thought, well, you know what? That was a really powerful message in that dream, that just to sit back and trust and go with the flow, I was going to end up in the right place. Yeah. And I thought nothing more of that dream, but I was a lot happier and felt a lot more confident that my choice of working with the community and my aim to inspire and share through creative communication to sort of spread my playful, joyful, happy vibes was the right thing to do, no matter what. So I decided I won't be afraid anymore. I'm just going to trust, and I will keep going. And Shortly after that, an opportunity arose which involved meeting Prince Charles, and a silk painting that I created in collaboration with my sister Hannah, who is an artist in her own right as well. And she let me know that there was an event happening at Old Trafford in Manchester at the football ground. It was the launch of a charity event for the Centre for Spirituality and Cultural Advancement. It was a Sufi event hosted by His Eminence Sheikh Hisham. And she mentioned it to me. She said, "Oh, there's this event going on. Do you want to go?" And I said to her, funnily enough, shall we actually try and do something creative for this event? Why don't we make a commemorative silk painting together? Because I had this dream that I ended up at the gates of Buckingham Palace. I said, maybe there's some kind of connection there. She loved that idea. So together we worked in an empty shop unit in Sutton High Street in Times Square, which I had, funnily enough, been coordinating. We worked together in this community art space and created a beautiful silk painting with Arabic calligraphy and an Islamic message on there. And anybody who visited the community art space over the 5 days that we took to create this silk painting together, we invited them to add a little bit of paint to it, because our hope was that we would be able to present this as a commemorative silk painting to either Sheikh Hisham or possibly even the very important guest that we had come to realize was going to be Prince Charles. So in that time, all happened very quickly. The local papers came down, and the local mayor at the time, who Sutton's mayor was Councillor Sean Brennan at the time, he popped down to see us working on this commemorative silk painting. We still didn't even know yet whether it was going to end up in Prince Charles's hands. And they did a little piece, a little interview that went into the local papers. We finished the silk painting, and it was the night before the launch of the charity event up at Old Trafford. And it suddenly occurred to me that, excuse me, even though Sheikh Hisham was very happy with the idea of the silk painting, and because we'd mentioned it to him, and he'd said, yes, come up and bring it to me and show it to me. We didn't have any clue. I suddenly thought there must be a protocol actually at a VIP event with royalty that surely he must know what gifts he's being presented. So I happened to call Buckingham Palace press office, and I said to them, excuse me, you've got this event going on tomorrow. I'm going to be at that event. And are you aware that I'm going to be presenting this silk painting to His Royal Highness? It's a last minute thing that's been agreed by the organisers of the event. Cut a long story short, she had to put me on hold, and she came back to me and she said, now you've broken all the protocols because we don't usually do this, but because this is already in the public domain, it's been in the local papers, what you now need to, what we will do is we will allow that to happen. And actually I've had a word with His Highness. I've sent him the email, the photograph of the silk painting that you've sent to me, and he's just told me by phone, he's looked at the silk painting, he said he'd be delighted to receive it. So he absolutely loved it. And from there, I ended up at this event in Old Trafford, and was in the VIP room and was the third in line to present this commemorative silk painting to him in person. And I have never been more nervous in my entire life. I had the biggest butterflies you could imagine. So that's my little story about Prince Charles and the gift. And you want to know more about it, you can sort of find a link to it through my website. Actually, the full story is there.
Oh, fantastic. Oh, yeah, that's amazing. I wonder where could it be today? Where is it today, Samia?
I would love to find out. Actually, I was thinking about that this morning. I thought maybe I could just ring the press office again and say, by the way, you remember 10 years ago, and perhaps well, I'm pretty sure they could find out where it might be. Can you imagine these guys? They must get so many gifts, and they're probably in storage somewhere, I imagine.
Yeah. Now,
So
I know
the power of dreams.
That's a beautiful story, and I know you said to cut a long story short, because you make my job as the guest show host very easy, because I don't really have to prompt you to talk. I know I have the same problem, but you have some amazing stories that actually they do pull on, and I was hoping you might be able to share something. And you are one for coming up with amazing, whether it's a hashtag or whether it's an acronym, but an inspirational acronym. And I think the one that you said to me was your story about your mum, and you had this acronym, post-traumatic growth. And I love that. But I know it wasn't just your mum. I know you also lost a child, but not to bring it too down, because we've just finished this lovely story, but I thought I'd love to give you the opportunity to tell us more about post-traumatic growth.
Thank you. And I love sharing this story. And, I have a healthy outlook on grief and death. And my mom, healthiest woman on the planet, beautiful lady, a sound healer, a color therapist, and non-smoker. Honestly, she ends up getting colon cancer, and she didn't find out until she was in the final stages of colon. That's how healthy she was. She just thought these aches and pains and things were maybe, whatever they were. When she finally had some tests done, she was told that she had 3 to 6 months to live. And they said, even with chemotherapy, that won't do much. We won't be able to extend your life much longer. There's nothing we can do we can't operate on you or anything like that. So bless her, my mum said, no, don't want your chemo. I will change my lifestyle. I will eat naturally. I will take supplements. I will go raw and avoid meats and things like that. Fortunately, she extended her life for another 18 months we had with her. So we knew that there was a finality to this story. So it's in the worst an awful situation, we were able to make the most of it. And she actually, bless her, she found her own sort of funeral. She went online and she found a natural woodland burial ground down in Edenbridge. It's Eden Valley Woodland Burial Ground. Beautiful spot. They had just started, they had taken over this huge area of natural woodland. And my mum was the first person to book a plot there. And subsequently, when she finally passed away, they named the area that she's buried in after her. They called it Ingrid's Coop in her honor, even though she wasn't the first person to end up being buried there. And what we were able to do as a family was to plan the funeral with her, and we went and we had a celebration of her life in this beautiful natural woodland burial ground, and completely made the most of the occasion. It was a gorgeous summer day. It was the beginning of August. Actually, tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of her passing, and we were able to really celebrate her life with joy. And we really put the fun in funeral. We collected her body from the hospice in Sutton, and we put her bamboo coffin that she'd chosen. We put her bamboo coffin in the back of my car. I drove her down to the burial ground. My brother was next to me. We had her playlist on, and she said to me, Samia, now you're going to promise me you're not going to drive too slowly down the motorway, like, in respect, as the sort of hearses would normally do. I said, don't worry, Mum, I'll do my best to break all the speed limits, which I actually did. And there was a really funny moment. Oh my God, it was hysterical. We just pulled out of the hospice, and the traffic light, I was doing a right turn, the traffic light was just about to go yellow before it went red. So I put my foot down to go through, and as I took the hard right turn, her actual coffin, even though we packed it and wedged it with all the buffet food and the champagne and everything, her coffin slides over to the left. My brother and I looked at each other like, what on earth was that? It was a bit like something out of Weekend at Bernie's. I don't know if you remember the film. Yeah, anyway, absolutely. So that was incredible. And of course, it was a beautiful, beautiful funeral. I still have friends whose children just remember that as the best funeral they've ever been to, because they were free to roam in this open woodland. They didn't have to sit there being quiet and listen to us talking and remembering her. And there was nothing too solemn and somber and serious about it. There was emotion, there was the feeling, there were the tears, there was the joy, there was the loss, there was the pain, there was everything. But those kids were free to roam. They were free to help us dig the earth back on top of her coffin. They took part in that. Everyone was given a shovel if they wanted to take part in it. You know, it really was a community. It was vibrant and it was delightful. And you know, that was a really special moment. My dad is actually buried 10 feet away from her in the same burial ground, even though he, as a Muslim, should be buried in theory in a Muslim burial ground. He said, no, I want to be buried next to Mum. And so he's also buried there. But it's really, you know, she always said to us, just have your usual fun. I'm going to be having my fun on the other side. And it was a similar thing in 1994 when I lost my daughter. I gave birth to a little girl, and she didn't make it. There was no way she was going to make it. She was on life support for 3 days. We made the decision to switch off her life support machine, and I insisted that I was the one to do that, and I did. And it was the dreams I had, you know, about her since that time. They gave me such strength and belief and a sense of, you know, there's so much more to life than we actually are aware of. And there's so much truth within our hearts. And she opened my heart to many mysteries, and I am eternally grateful. And I look forward to seeing both of them one day. And it wasn't really until sort of after my mum died, and I was had 2 or 3 months where I was really busy on some community projects, and then I just turned around to my husband and the kids and some work colleagues, and I said, guys, I really know I just need a couple of weeks off. I want to go grieve. I want to cry. I want to connect with my mum. I want to feel the loss. I want to go into my pain. I want to be miserable if I want to be miserable. I want to sit and binge watch stuff on TV and forget about the world and do all of that stuff. I just need a couple of weeks. In that grieving process, actually, after a day of binge watching stuff on TV, I got really so bored because I'm a creative person. And I was so bored sitting there watching these really good old detective series like Foyle's War and things I'd never bothered watching before. I thought, I need something to do. I'm like, Mum, you know what? I'm really enjoying sort of tuning into you, but this is really dull now. So maybe you can send me something creative to do while I'm switching off from the world and tuning into you. Seriously, the next afternoon, I ended up by default looking for something for my youngest son, who I was home educated, both my kids, was looking for something for him to do, ended up clicking a few links, saw this website about how to finger knit. I thought, finger knitting, what's that? Basically, finger knitting is what it is. You knit with your fingers. You wrap the wool onto your fingers and you knit. And you basically can create lengths of ropes. And that I thought, I've got fingers, I've got wool, I can do that, and I can still tune out and I can still binge watch. And that was just an incredible process for me, an incredible grieving process, because the wools that I were using were these beautiful, soft, multicolored wools that made my hands feel incredible. And I was feeling it, and I would sit there knitting and crying and laughing and remembering and tuning in and tuning out and knitting. And I spent a couple of weeks and I knitted these ropes, and then I was really bored of knitting these ropes. I thought there must be something more to to finger knitting than just these ropes, which I really enjoyed playing around with, by the way. Then I learned how to finger knit and add rows while I was knitting, so I could make hats and scarves and tops and blankets and all of that stuff. And soon after that, I ended up making a load of Christmas presents for everybody. So everyone that Christmas in 2015, everybody had finger knitted gifts from me. Then somebody, a good friend of mine, who you know, Caterina Loriccio, she said, Samia, Sutton Council, they're regenerating the north end of the high street, and they're looking for creative ideas from local artists. Maybe you could do something with your finger knitting. Maybe you could yarn bomb or something like that. And actually, that's what I did. I submitted a proposal, and I ended up working with 3 or 4 community groups around the high street, elderly, disabled, and a few others. And I went in, I taught everybody how to finger knit. I didn't tell them why I was telling them how to finger knit, but I said, you need to help me make enough ropes for an art installation. Actually, that's all I said to them. And bless them, everybody trusted me. They loved the idea of not knowing what they were doing, but that it was going to be something they could come and see. And with all of those finger knitted ropes, we then went and yarn bombed, which is basically covered the street furniture in those finger knitted ropes overnight one night, and brought colour to the area. And I think since then I've taught about 2,500 to 3,000 people how to finger knit. Finger knitting's taken me to festivals. I've worked with children, I've worked with the elderly, I've worked with people with learning disabilities. They've taken the idea. People have said to me, oh my God, this is such a fabulous idea. I'm doing this in Australia now, working with the community and bringing people together through this finger knitting. And it was at one of those festivals, actually WOMAD Festival, which I love, that I bumped into a psychotherapist or psychologist, I can't remember, one of the head people at Leicester University, I believe. And she asked me, we ended up conversing. I told her this whole story, and she said, what you've done is taken your trauma and made something positive happen with it, which we call post-traumatic growth. And there you go, bless my mum, and everybody who's ever learned how to finger knit from me, they have my mum to thank for that.
Yeah, I know at the beginning of COVID, we had a session of doing finger knitting to families, and good fun. And I know we have a good yarn project, which we run a couple of times as well. So if anybody's interested in finger knitting, before you go on YouTube, make contact with Samia, because I'm sure she's got a few projects up her sleeve. But Samia, something you said which I thought was very interesting. If we may just go back to the moment you collected your mum from the hospice, that must have been a very unique experience for the staff at the hospice, or not?
Oh, absolutely, because, well, you imagine who would normally be going to a hospice to collect a body will be the funeral directors, and they'll be arriving in their black suits and their black hearse, and it'll just be a sort of the same old, same old. It's the normal way of doing things. Nothing wrong with it. It's just the way it's done. So yes, when we said to the hospice that we were her funeral directors, that we would be collecting her body, it was just like this little light in their eyes, and they were going, really? What, you, the family? Or they absolutely loved the idea. The day that we arrived to pick her up, almost all the nurses, well, everybody there who wasn't actually busy came to see what was going on and took part with us and shared the sort of the joy and the tears and the fun, as they pulled her coffin out of the chiller. Somebody gave me a marker pen because we had to write her name and the date on her bamboo coffin, and I looked at the nurse and I said, what is that? Just in case she wakes up, she can't remember who she is or where she is. So there were, it was just lovely to have that spirit, and they were they were smiling and they were grateful. They were so grateful that a family had come to pick up their loved one. What a joy. It was such a joyful moment for all of us, for the people who'd cared for her in her last week. They'd cared for her brilliantly as well. We all had tears in our eyes, and we have some lovely photos of those moments, and the fun of sort of lifting her coffin and putting it into the back of my estate car, and how we had to then rearrange, you know, trying to pad either side of the coffin with all the food that my sister-in-law and my brother and my sisters, everyone had gone shopping. It was champagne and prosecco and food and a gazebo as well, because we set up a nice display. But it was a beautiful experience for the people at the hospice. And as well, you know, when Mum died, my sister and I, we were the ones that washed her body, you know, under the supervision of the nurses. We said, no, we want to do this. This is Mum. You know, you come into the world as a baby. Who takes care of you? Your mum. Who washes you? Your mum. Who wipes everything down? Your mum. We wanted to give that back to her.
Wow, that's amazing. What a beautiful story.
Thank you. I managed to do it without actually letting the tears spill over my eyes.
May I ask, because I wanted to talk, because music plays such a big part in your life. What was the music that you played in the car?
Mum had Pavarotti and Bob Marley and the Police. This was on her playlist. So then we'd sent that playlist to everybody, so that if they wanted to, they could play those kind of songs on their way down to the Eden Valley burial ground.
Oh, fantastic! And
then my husband produces music, and actually,
I was just about to say I wanted to bring Paolo into the story.
Sorry, Andy.
Please continue.
Oh. So when I was pregnant with my first, my second baby, when I was pregnant with my son Yahya, my mum had a dream, and she said to me in the dream, Samia, what's really important is that you sing your song, and I never forgot that. By which she meant, you know, just speak your truth, do it your way, and use that voice that you have. You know, if you have the ability and the confidence to speak up for other people, then you should use your voice. And which is why I love what you're doing, Andy, because you're opening, you're bringing people like myself, and you had Chloe Ray on recently, and, you know, her beautiful story, and you're enabling this people who have overcome things to share how they've done it, which is really valuable and important for people to hear, because it's, you know, those wounds that I've had, I've been able to allow the light to come in because I've been able to overcome them. About 6 years ago, my husband started working with a lyricist called Malcolm Lyrical. My husband is very good with music and creating music. He's not so good with the sort of the poetry and finding the words and finding the way to express himself. Lyrical, however, is an absolute incredible beat poet. He's not really a singer. He's not really a rapper, but he raps and delivers it with a poetic beat. So I like to call him a beat poet. The two of them found a synergy together, and over the sort of last 6 years, created an album which is called Everyday Moments. And every song on that album really is a story about different stages in your life and overcoming certain things or looking at things from a different angle. One of the songs is Step Forward, and the song Step Forward on the album Everyday Moments is about, you know, even if you can't find a way, it's never too late. You know, don't get lost in finding and looking and searching, because actually, if you're trying so hard to find, oh, what do I do next? You might just make it harder for yourself. And actually, it goes back to that dream I had about trust, you know, just sit back and trust that life will actually show you the way, and the gifts that you're born with, because I really genuinely believe every person on the planet is born with their own unique gift and their own value and their own worth is within them. And it's about, you know, life for me, as I perceive it and through my experience, is about working with that gift and not being afraid of it, and finding the way to let it flourish and allow it to flourish and enable it to flower, so that you can grow and so that you can give and keep that cycle of life flowing. I think that, you know, once we go into schools, our gifts are smothered a little and hindered, unfortunately, through what I call schooling and the ways to behave in society. There is, you know, community is, it's worth, it's another subject entirely. We could go on that one for a good couple of hours, but those are the gifts that we have, and tapping into them and using them. Now I'm able to sort of sing that as well, courtesy of my husband. I don't consider myself, I'm not a trained singer, but I would say I'm a vocalist, and, you know, he can work magic with his sort of audio levels and things like that, and together we have this beautiful album, and every song has a message, which from the feedback I have from many different people has meant something. Each song's meant something different to each person that's given me that feedback, so I'm very grateful. And yeah, music is my life, and as my mum said, sing your song. So I'm doing it, Mama.
If our viewers want to listen to that music, how can they find it?
They can go to paolotossio.com/music releases, and it's all there, and they can listen to it, and then if they like it, they can buy it for £5.99, or they can just go there and listen to it if they don't have the money. But yeah, that's where they can go, paolotossio.com/music releases.
Okay, fantastic. You mentioned there about, let's just touch on this. We're not going to have a go. I don't want you to have a dig at the schooling system, but you did mention earlier about you're a home educating parent,
yeah.
And I think it's interesting, because I'd love you to talk about a little bit about home education and the challenges that have been put on so many parents now with this expectation homeschooling, because you even said to me, this is not homeschooling. This is like crisis schooling. It's not even schooling. So it's a bit unfair to put all that pressure onto parents to say that you're homeschooling, because even you've said that's not what I did as a homeschooling parent.
No, I as I'm, you know, a home educator, you could even use the term self-education, because in a way that's sort of what my children have been doing. But for parents now with COVID-19, us home educators have preferred to call what the school parents have been doing distance learning, because it's a little bit more like distance learning. As home educators, you're not confined to just being at home, which is what many of us obviously have been doing. As home educating parents, you're out in the community, you're using the resources, you're at museums, you're at historic houses, you're going off to group workshops, just as you would on a school trip, but you're just doing a lot more of that and a lot more often. You're going for social meetups, you're going to small tutor groups. So it's a very social thing. Home education is a very, very social thing. It's one of the biggest concerns for many people. It'll be one of the first questions anybody's ever asked me, what about socialization? And I can only smile back and appreciate the concern. But, you know, I've never been worried about socialization because of all the group trips. And actually, when my youngest was 9 or 10, he turned around and said, Mom, do we really have to go on another trip? Can we just go somewhere by ourselves? And, you know, I just sort of sat back and went, wow, okay, we've reached saturation point with all the fabulous things that we've been doing. So you'll find that home educators will do things in many different ways, just as parents do things, and family life is different for all of us. You know, every family has a different way of doing things. So we followed an autonomous route, we were structured, we were semi-structured, and I always responded based to what my children were showing me they were interested in. So that's what we were able to support, and that's the flow that we went with. They touched on curriculum through a sort of their online computer learning for maths, let's say, and for science. I had a tutor that would come and do small group science lessons at the house. So the cost was shared between parents, so it was affordable. And you don't have to be a teacher to home educate. You don't have to know anything to home educate. You actually have the resources of YouTube and all of, as I said, the online computer programs. You've got BBC Bite Size, you've got the Khan Academy. There are so many resources out there. And really, I applaud every parent of children who through this COVID-19, honestly, my hats go off to you, because you were thrown in at the deep end with no warning. And that's really, really hard. I'm the type of person that will always swim. You know, I'll find the way. I'm adaptable. I adapt to situations very, very quickly. I know that was difficult. That has been a very difficult thing for very many people to do. So hats off to all of you that have done it. And I think some schools responded brilliantly, and they sent letters out to parents saying, please, parents, we're going to send you this work, but look, your kids' emotional and mental well-being comes first. And you know, if this is tricky for you to be following right now, then please put the needs of your child first. Whereas other schools may have been a little bit more, let's say, heavy-handed or draconian about, oh, you need to be doing this, and this by now. And now, again, every child is different. Some children will have struggled not being told what to do and not having that guidance from the school. Some of them would have you know, reacted against that, and it would have made their situations worse. So they needed that constant structure. Some would have loved the freedom. I know from the home education groups, because as home educating parents, of course, we all set, you know, the national groups set up support groups for all you school parents out there to share resources and tips and guidance and help and assistance, emotional and mental, and you know, as well as practical, and resources. And I know that from many of those home education groups, I'm seeing now parents, school parents with who'd been contemplating home education but thinking no, they couldn't do it, suddenly going, wow, this has been a revelation. My very unhappy at school child has suddenly become so happy and relaxed. They're eating better. They're no longer worried. They're no longer having panic attacks. All the anxiety's gone, and this is now the way forward for them. So it's worked, you know, it's worked wonders for some of the school families, and they are now going to be home educating, especially for parents, kids with special educational needs. A lot of those children, from the comments that I've been seeing, their children are just, they've gone back to being happy, vibrant children who are no longer suffering. So it's different and it's unique, and everybody's situation is unique. So what I'm saying is just from the sort of general things that I'm seeing on those groups, and it's different for everybody. So what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you, and vice versa. So people find their own way. And I think COVID has enabled people to find a way. It's been difficult for some, and yeah, you know, there we are.
I agree. If anybody's interested, you mentioned the home education support groups. Yeah. Is there one that stands out as one you would recommend people go to?
There is, gosh, oh, I wish I'd written the names of it down, because there are so many. And he changed the name of it recently. But if you just go to the Home Education UK Facebook forum, or he changed the name for it, but I'm happy to drop a link into you. We can share.
Yeah, we can do that. We can send that to all the viewers afterwards.
Yeah, the Home.
If you're watching this on YouTube, yes, this is live stream to YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put a link in there in the comments as well.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's incredible in terms of things and the focus that people have experienced through the COVID pandemic. But one of the things, and I touched on this earlier, some of the hashtags that I've seen you create
Oh yeah.
Over these weeks. And tell me about hashtag #CoVeg19.
No, that is a delightful accident. That is the accidental community veg patch. I've always wanted to grow vegetables. I've always loved the idea of having an allotment. My father-in-law here, his little allotment is gorgeous. And, you know, I've always thought, oh, I'd love to do that. There's a patch of earth on the community estate where we live that never had really been planted properly. So it really was quite a large patch of earth along the service road. Thankfully, you know, the silver lining for me, one of the silver linings of COVID-19 was that suddenly I had the time to plant some vegetables. I had the time to watch all the YouTube videos on how to grow vegetables and the time to dig the beds and everything. And actually what happened was I cleared my garage, as many of us did. We got around to doing all those household tasks we've been putting off for years. I cleared out the garage. And I had 4 drawers from a chest of drawers that I took out because I needed the space for something else. And I thought these drawers would actually make great veg beds. And that's where it all started. I put those out, got some compost, put that in, planted some seeded potatoes. I had potatoes in my cupboard that had started sprouting, planted those, started speaking to a few friends that knew a lot more about it than I did. And it started from there. Now, very naturally, the neighbors, as I said, I'm on a community estate, neighbors will, oh, what are you doing? Like, oh, you know what, I'm just planting some veg. You want to join in? Safely, of course. You want to help dig? You want to help plant? You want to help clear? And over a number of weeks, that's basically what happened. And it was pure joy to see the way the community, the neighbors who, you know, you might, you know, sort of say hello to and you know, smile at. Well, I know the names of so many more neighbors now, and everybody's sort of gotten to know each other. And now I'm away, you know, for 4 weeks. I've had to leave hashtag #CoVeg19 in the safe hands of my neighbors. One of them, Pete, he's basically he had some heart troubles and went through a bit of a trial himself with his health. He's just been a delight, and he's taking on watering everything, and he's looking after the tomatoes. They're outside his ground floor flat. He's looking after those and watering the others. And my message to the neighbors was, the strict instructions are, you must not let the veg go to waste, because everything will be sort of coming into fruition now. The tomatoes, I'm sure, will be turning red. I was lucky enough to be able to bring a few of my huge courgettes over here with me, and my little yellow squash, and they've been delicious. But, you know, it's ready, and the neighbors are talking to each other in a different way. And that hashtag #CoVeg19, that community vegetable patch, just brought a smile to people, and it's been a point of conversation. It's been a conversation starter. And I think it's just been a delight, because, well, there's nothing political. There are no isms in veg. There's no racism in veg. There's no, you can't have an argument about masks or no masks or whatever. They're vegetables. It's growing. It's sustenance. We all need to eat. Anyway, so there are plans now. One of the neighbors, she's been making some ceramic letters. She wants to put those up. We're talking about how we can make it a bigger space for next year, and where we can, because actually I didn't know what was going to grow. Everything grew, and thank God for YouTube and Hugh Richards' veg growing videos, permaculture videos, because actually everything has grown. And I look forward to going back to see how the beans are doing and all sorts of things. But yeah, it's been lovely. Hashtag #CoVeg19 has been one of the silver linings, and I'm sure you're going to ask me about a couple of the others if we've got time.
Well, no, you brought smiles to people's faces, and I think if anything, wow. And was there anyone in particular that you might have known before they started getting involved to now that you thought, my goodness me, a complete change in personality?
Yeah, really. I mean, you know, I obviously protecting people's identities, but yeah, there are a couple of people that I hadn't really had conversations with, and I wasn't sure, you know, I sort of felt, or maybe they're a little bit, you know, tetchy, or what's the word? Not grumpy, but do you know what I mean? It felt a little bit closed to me and maybe not approachable. And just through this veg growing, you know, this gentleman came over one way. Oh, what are you doing? I like what you're doing. Did you know that you can? And he has loads of veg growing tips. Been sharing them with me. Starts smiling again. We're cracking jokes again. And another lady, she's walking her dog every morning, passing, stops. Oh, I like what you've done here. We start talking about vegetables, about the problems she's had growing and her little patch. I didn't even know she had been growing. And it just broke sort of any barriers. It really just opened doors, and it really has been a delight. Even the little kids, you know, I've said to some of the kids who were helping me sort of dig the beds and then helped plant some of the seedlings that we got. As I was planting, I said, right, and the little ones, they were quite happy with this idea, but there was this 11-year-old lad. I said, right, as you're planting, remember to say thank you to the plant and encourage it and say, oh, well done, lovely plant. I'm putting you in the ground now. I hope you're going to be happy here. I hope you're going to grow beautifully. We look forward to eating the fruits of our labor. And you know, if you need anything, let us know, type thing. You know, I'm kind of like that. The nutter with the veg. Anyway, this young lad, he goes, oh, I'm not going to talk to the vegetables. That's not cool. What will my friends think? I looked at him and I looked at him and I went, I said, it is only the cool people that know that talking to vegetables is the cool thing to do. Actually, that's all it took. And bless him, he talks to those vegetables and he encourages their growth. And I'm really glad if I've done one positive thing in my life, it was letting that 11-year-old boy know that it's cool to encourage the vegetables, and respect your food and love it and give it that energy. Then, you know, I'm a happy girl. I'm simple, quite simple, really.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, Jamie Oliver said similar things, you know, get the kids to grow their food and they'll eat it.
Yeah, they will.
Fantastic. But something else came out of COVID for you. I remember, when was it? Was it April? Suddenly, Samia Tossio has got her own radio show for 2 hours.
Hashtag go with the flow. Yes, every Saturday, 10 till 12 on juiceradio.net. And it came up out of the blue. Andy, honestly, I tell you, I said yes on the Wednesday. They were looking for female presenters. My husband does a Wednesday night show. He said, oh, they need female presenters. Why don't you have your own show? You'd be great. I'm like, yeah, okay. I went live I said yes on the Wednesday, went live on the Saturday morning. Seriously, that Friday night, I have not been so afraid in my life ever. I think I was sick to the pit of my stomach, and then even deeper. I went complete blank. I didn't know what I was going to. I thought, I've got nothing to say to anybody. I couldn't remember a single story. What was I going to do? Anyway, complete fear was eroded as soon as I went live, and I came out with what's now my catchphrase, which was, hey, 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 good morning, world. And since then, I've had 13 shows, and I'm Andy Cops. You will be a guest on my Go With The Flow show soon, I hope. When we get back to the UK, I'll sort that out. And because of that radio show, which is a chat show with music, I called it Go With The Flow because that keeps it open and it enables me to go with the flow and stay up with, you know, what am I feeling, what's going on with the world right now. And I have guests in, a guest every week, sort of in the second hour, and you'll be one of them. And actually, it was through that radio show that my third mega silver lining of COVID-19 came about. And I was contacted by the ambassador for kindness in Iceland, a beautiful lady, Linda Baldvinsdottir. She contacted me through one of the other DJs on the show. He passed her to me. And she said, would I be able to come onto your show to talk about hashtag Kind20? It's a global social media campaign for kindness, the aim of which at that time, the sort of while we were still at that early phase of COVID-19, was to register more cases of kindness through using the hashtag Kind20 than COVID-19 by the end of this year. And of course, it's developed now, and we've got hashtag Kind20 champions, and people are being encouraged through using the hashtag Kind20 to celebrate kindness, to recommend and use that hashtag if they want to say, oh wow, I think Andy Cops has been really kind having me on his show, so I'd like to recommend hashtag Andy Cops as a hashtag kind20 champion for all he's doing with My London Voice and What's Your Story and your beautiful storytelling, or one of your neighbors who you've seen doing something beautiful for their neighbors, and share that and encourage this idea that all around the world people are celebrating and focusing on kindness, because there is this negative vibe, isn't there? There has been this awful fear, this awful wave of change, and this despair and loss and disruption and destruction and fear, and we have to be kind. We've really got to dig deep to find that kindness and those kind vibes, and reach out with kindness and kind words and kind eyes and kind smiles to people, to lift the spirits and to have that connection, and to remind each other that we're all going through a very similar thing, but very in unique ways. We're not all as fortunate as each other. I count my blessings, honestly. I know for us, we've been very fortunate through this pandemic, and the idea of using hashtag kind20 is to change that pandemic into a kindemic, and to really connect people, no matter what culture, no matter whether they have a faith or whether they don't have a faith, whether you believe in whatever you believe in. Kindness is a really gentle way and a loving way to connect people and enable people to overcome and to share their stories. So I'm very happy to have been asked by the founders, the co-founders of Tough Earth, who powered the campaign, to be a global ambassador in the UK for kindness. So that happened to me as well.
Well, congratulations.
I sort of sat back. Thank you. I sat back and I thought, what? And in honor of my mum and my dad, sing your song and use your voice, and I am doing that in honor of my lost loved ones. Yeah.
It's something you're talking about your mom and your dad again, and it brings me back to something when I said to you, it's very strange. I'll walk into a room and I'll go, Samia's here. Where is she? It's like you carry this energy force field around with you, Samia.
Oh,
and
wow.
and you also, and I mentioned this to somebody once, and they said, yeah, it is strange, because as soon as Samia walks into a room, she's smiling and she just uplifts people around her. Now, you've explained that to me before, and would you be willing to share it?
Okay, bless you, thank you. And no, you're not the only one that says this. And also what I do genuinely, I like to walk in, especially if I'm going somewhere new. And now I don't even do it consciously. I used to do it, sort of make a conscious effort to do it, and it depends on the situation. But yes, you're referring to something, in fact, that Maya Angelou also does. And it was just incredible that I read about the fact that she does this too. I tune into my ancestors, they're with me. Wherever I go, I came from them, they're with me, they're part of me, they're part of my conscious, my subconscious, my history, my essence, wherever I come from. My blood has come from, that tree, those roots, those are my roots, and my roots aren't ever going to leave me. And I bring those people and the energy of them with me wherever I go. So especially if I'm going into a tricky situation, like for instance, when I was starting the radio show, the sort of the prayer and the ask for me was, right, guys, hey, ancestors, be with me today. Let me speak. Let me say what needs to be said. Let me share what I need to share. You guide me, you help me. Yeah. So help me communicate what, and let me be this person. I acknowledge my gifts. and I acknowledge those. You know, it's a blessing, and I want them to be there so that I'm supported by that energy and by them. So yeah, they come with me wherever I go, consciously and subconsciously.
That's beautiful. And it made me think of, and I got a great deal of, well, I learned a lot from you when I started doing this work with doing stuff online, and you are suddenly very reliant on technology. You're reliant on internet. You're reliant on cameras and audio devices working. And there have been a couple of sticky shows that you've had where people haven't been able to connect through. And I mean, you've had to cancel a show because it's just, well, guess what? Virgin decided they were just not going to work today. And but the fact of the matter is, you just go with the flow. It is what it is. Just work with it.
Yeah, you've got to work with it, Andy, because well, you know, technology when it works, like today, amazing. Funnily enough, actually, you're mentioning it, but about 5 minutes into our conversation here now, my screen's frozen. I have no idea what's going on. I don't see anything. I just got a frozen image of me and you, and actually I look really, really weird in the frozen image of me, so I've just not been looking at it. Well, but yeah, tech fails.
I can hear you. There are still people that are still part of this conversation today, so I'd like to think that people can still hear us, and at the end of the day, it's the voice, isn't it? It's the voice that's so amazingly powerful.
And I really appreciate what you've done, because your work, before you took the bull by the horns, because you felt a calling to use your creativity and your voice for good. You were in a world of corporate work, and you've come a long way on your journey, and it's just been, you know, you going back to what you said at the beginning and how you connected. I did just want to say that it was your T-shirt, wasn't it? It was the T-shirt that you had on, because I just happened to say something about, you know, refugees and the Good Yarn Project, and you just went, "Oh, look at my T-shirt," and lifted up your jumper, and there was your T-shirt with "Donate for Refugees" on it, and I was just like, I got to work with this guy, you know. I've got to work with you, and your ability to make people relax as well, and the way you started those sessions when we did those first the Good Yarn Project sessions with the Refugee Migrant Network, and subsequently the homeless, remember, oh my god, the Single Homeless Project in Westminster at the start of the year, and how you just have that way of the breathing technique as you know, because some people will be like, oh god, breathing techniques, yoga, what's that, very off-putting. It'll put some people off, which is fine. The way you did it, just so naturally, and so sort of, you know, look, we're just going to breathe, we're just going to connect, and there was no fuss about it. There's nothing too flowery and flouncy about it. It was really lovely. And then your bowl thing, and it's just so nice. So I'm really, really, just really, you know, I'm proud of the way you are delivering your work, and I think it's you're reaching people.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. #kind20. There you go. Now we are coming towards the end. I mean, how does an hour go by so quickly? Well, it's very easy when I have a guest like you. But you're an artist. You make things for a living. You design things. If people want to have a look at your stuff, Samia, whether it's finger knitting or your designs and the things you sell, where can people go to?
I thank you for mentioning it. So if they want to buy something like this T-shirt, which actually I've customized because it's very hot over here, so I've given myself air holes. You should see the back; it's all spliced up as well. You know, but T-shirts like this, you can go to my Redbubble shop, and actually all the links are on my website, samiarts.co.uk. That will take you through to my Redbubble shop, which is actually samiartstyle.redbubble.com, and that's a site where designers like myself, I'm a doodle artist, as I say, Playful Creative, and I doodle. This is actually a doodle. It was all done by hand. I've then digitized it and played with it digitally. It's sort of Redbubble. I upload my design, and you can select what product you would like that on. They do that automatically. The glory of tech, you know, you could buy a shower curtain, you could buy a bedspread or a T-shirt or a mask or something like that. So that's samiartstyle.redbubble.com. And then for finger knitwear, The finger knitted stuff, I have an Etsy shop, and that, again, you can go to my website for that. With the finger knitted products, I make all of those myself. So I kind of push that less because it's so much more time consuming, but I love doing markets. And that's because I really love to sell to a person rather than through a computer. Anyway, but so my finger knitted products are generally sort of from October through to, let's say, February, March time. And now this Redbubble thing is a new thing that I, again, through COVID, I had the time and space to think about it a little bit more. And so I'm going to be uploading more and more designs there. But this passion flower doodle is there already. So do please go and have a look. And yeah, thank you for letting me share that.
Well, thank you, Samia. We've come to the end of today's What's Your Story? It's been an absolute pleasure. I think you've shared so many stories, some very close to your heart indeed, but I know it resonates with me. I know it will resonate immensely with our viewers. And I wish you all the best. Enjoy the rest of your holiday.
I will try. I will try. I'm looking at the pool over there, which I'll be getting into in a minute.
Fantastic. And before we finish, folks, I just want to say a big thanks to our sponsors, the Dream Raven Group and Estate and Agent, who have kindly sponsored the cost for today's show. Now, Samia, you wanted to say you had an idea around how we could sponsor the show or put advertising up during the show. Was there something?
Oh, Andy, God, that was brilliant. When I watched you interviewing Chloe, I was sitting there, I was trying to work. You were so brilliant. It was so, I was like, oh no, okay, I've got to watch this. And you know what? Your head, mate, that's a great avatar. You need to sell advertising space on that head.
Yeah.
I want to see it, right? I want to see it. Buy this space. I think you should put space for hire. Advertising.
I will speak to the marketing team and my stage management team and see what they have to say about that. But
excellent.
I think you brought a smile to everyone's face, as you always do, Samia.
Oh, bless
Samia Tossio, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone that's joined us today for What's Your Story. You can watch the recording on Crowdcast. You can also go to YouTube. If you do go to YouTube, please, please, please click on subscribe. We really want to get the subscriptions up. All right, guys, take care. I wish you all, just remember, your story matters, and you telling your story in your own voice matters more. Take care. Wish you well. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.